When Jesus says, "Now my soul is troubled," just before the Father speaks, he is signaling that the sacrifice is much deeper than just physical pain. "Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But for this purpose I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name." Then a voice came from heaven, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." The crowd that stood there and heard it said that it had thunder. Actually, hold on one second. So we read this last year or yesterday, but I wanted to ask. I forgot to ask. In John 12, verse 28, what is God referring to? I will glorify it again. In John 12:28, the dialogue occurs at a pivotal moment. Jesus has entered Jerusalem for the final time and is wrestling with the trouble of his impending soul sacrifice. When he prays, "Father, glorify your name," a voice from heaven responds, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." I need to save this because I want to ask about this too. His impending soul sacrifice. A voice from heaven responds, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." To understand what God is referring to, we have to look at the two distinct acts of glorification mentioned. "I have glorified it," the past. The Father is referring to the entirety of Jesus' earthly ministry up to that point. I see. God's name, his character, power, and presence had already been put on display through the incarnation, the miracles, and Jesus' obedience. "I will glorify it again," the future. This refers to the hour Jesus frequently mentions: the crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension. Oh, okay. All right, that makes sense. So I wanted to ask, based on your statement below, whoops. Based on your statement, is it held that, what am I trying to ask here? Is it held that God needed a soul to be sacrificed and a physical body that was sinless? Or what is the distinction between the physical sacrifice made and the soul? The distinction between the physical sacrifice and the soul of Jesus is one of the most profound areas of theology. When Jesus says, "Now my soul is troubled," just before the Father speaks, he is signaling that the sacrifice is much deeper than just physical pain. In mainstream Christian theology, the sacrifice is viewed as a total offering of the person, which requires both a physical body and a human soul. Here is how the distinction is typically broken down. The physical sacrifice. The physical aspect was necessary to satisfy the legal requirements of the Old Testament sacrificial system. In biblical law, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Because humanity sinned in the flesh, the payment had to be made in the flesh. The sinless requirement. Just as the Passover lamb had to be without blemish, Jesus had to be physically pure, i.e. sinless, so that his death wasn't a punishment for his own sins, but a substitution for others. Visibility. The physical suffering made the invisible wrath of God against sin visible. The physical suffering made the invisible wrath of God against sin visible and tangible to the world.